So let's take a look at the major player in the tarot. And this is not a person. It's not a man. It's not a woman. It's the picture itself is an attempt to represent a larger archetype within our consciousness. And this Fool figure, who's the main character, the main traveler in the tarot, is kind of like the spirit unmanifest. And you can see this figure there with a very ornate robe. That implies that it's not his first go-round or her first go-round. There's a white rose in the hand indicating a purity of intent. The little animal is our instinctive self, our little physical body, our instinct saying, no, it's too scary, don't do it. And yet the spirit is willing. That willingness is very characteristic and really hallmark of the Fool, being willing to take that leap. And where is he leaping, or she leaping? Into this kind of experience, yet another lifetime. And so we're going to see here in these 21, the rest of the 22 major arcana, the Fool is the 0, and here we have 1 through 21. We can very oversimplifiedly, if I can use a big, long, kind of crazy word there, we can say that for the purposes of just getting oriented to this, the first row, the first horizontal row, would be like internal resources and early education. And so I'm going to take us off camera for a moment to look at these cards. And in the first row, you could say that Magician and High Priestess are like our internal masculine and feminine polarity. Then all of us have a physical mother and father, whether or not we ever even knew them or interacted with them. We had them as a physical thing in order to get here. We also got educated into the social mores and into a belief structure. And usually the people around us brought us up the way they thought of, and that's how we came up. That's the Hierophant figure. And then we have relationships. We make choices in our encounters with others. That's the Lover's card. We travel beyond our initial circumstances. That's the Chariot. And then our mutual friend that we know, Anne Marie, she called that middle row here adulting, which I like, the lessons of adulthood. And so you have the lessons of managing your passions with the Strengths card, managing solitude and your own individual pathway with the Hermit, other people's trajectories and the fates, shall we say, with the Wheel of Fortune. What about law, universal law, municipal law, lawsuits, all that kind of stuff? The Justice card, that's certainly been very primary in your life, I have heard. And wishing you much luck and much success in seeking justice there. The Hanged Man is this kind of pause period where you can't really do anything because this is enforced upon you. Perhaps that's where you're at these days too. And then there's other things that come through and you cannot resist them. COVID, for example, we could, it's a big thing we all had to respond to. The way we do that also is a kind of test, and that's the Temperance card, where we begin to figure out how we can come back into balance and find our way through these tests. And then on the bottom row, we could represent those as states of consciousness. You could be extremely materialistic and power driven, and that's kind of the Devil card. If that's your only priority, then usually life and reality will come in and knock the lid off of that and throw you into a bit of a reversal. And then you're kind of left naked unto yourself. And who are you really in that Star card? What is your authenticity? That's usually a rather emotional, confusing process to figure out, which is the Moon card. If we are fortunate, we can touch the divinity and feel that source, and then it can carry us, like in that Sun card. And that gives us the opportunity to wake up and march to a different drummer, like that Judgment card, and then come to what is both a victory and an ending and a new beginning with that World card. And if you look at the first card, the Magician, he has one wand, and then our World card at the end with this victorious purple sash has the two wands of victorious wreaths. And then the same four characters from the Wheel of Fortune are now in focus, heads only, in the corners of the World card, accompanying this Fool who has now gone through all of these things and is ready to transcend and perhaps do it again. Let's take a look at some of the minor arcana. So we saw that these majors are 22. And then the tarot deck is 78. And so that leaves us with more than double the amount of cards in what are the ancestors of the playing cards that they use in Vegas, or you might use for playing gin rummy or bridge or whatever games you might be playing. And you can see the four suits. We have on the left the wands, which are connected to fire. And then we have the cups, which are connected to water. We have the swords, which are connected to air. And then the pentacles, or the coins, which are connected to earth. If you are looking for those playing card connections, the wands on the left are like the clubs, the hearts are like the cups, the spades are like the swords, and then the diamonds are like the pentacles that we have here, or the coins. Why are there five? Why is there a 5-pointed star on the coin? Why is there a pentagram on the pentacle? This is because we are currency, shall we say, in this physical world, and the pentacle suit is the physical world represented, is our five senses. We have our body, and we need to figure out the world, and the tools that we have at our disposal are our five senses of sight, sound, hearing, taste, and touch. And then we also have our mental function represented with the swords, the emotions with the cups, and then we don't control it, but we can receive from the wands realm and hopefully establish a good connection to that realm of the wands. If we wanted to look at this Kabbalistically, we would then kind of flip these up like this so that the wands were coming in from the top. And let's imagine an idea, bringing an idea from inception all the way into the physical reality. We first get the idea, and that's the spark. That's the wands. If anything is going to happen with that idea, we're going to have to care about it and invest it with emotional energy. That's the cups. Then it's going to have to come into a more rational function and get planned for. Perhaps lists, a timeline, things like that. You start getting analytical with it, and then only then are you able to really bring it into the physical as represented with those pentacles. And another feature of the pentacle, and we can look at those knights along the bottom here, there's a lot of speed and movement represented within the three suits until we get to the pentacles, and that is the slowest of our horses. And the reason for that is because our medium, and when we have our vehicle is our body, but our medium is time, and things take time. We got to be conceived and then gestated and then born, and then we spend like 18 years getting it together before we get to our adulting, shall we say, and that pentacle, that knight of pentacles there, has to be a trusty guy to be able to stand and guard the field that's been freshly plowed so that the crows don't pick it over and take all the seed, so that no one starves. There's the idea that we have to eat, and there's cycles of time in the world. So we could go on, and I certainly have gone on and on until this point. So let's move on. Let's take a look at the wands, 1 through 5, 6 through 10, and then our court cards on the right. And we can see that there's lots of fiery symbols in those court cards, with salamanders, the desert, there's flames, there's sunflowers, there's all kind of lions, very fiery symbols there. In contrast to the cups, we have our 1 through 5 and 6 through 10, and then our court cards there, lots of shells and fish and water. And there's even some Mercury wings, because there's also the idea of emotional purpose and senses there. There are angels, there's little mermaids, all kinds of watery symbols in the court cards. It cools down a bit in the swords. The swords are the suit of thought and intellect and the rational function, which is quite less emotional. And you want someone to be able to carry out the deed. Let's say you want a surgeon who's not going to faint from all the blood. You need someone who's going to keep a cool head in times of trouble. But you can see also how if you just stay in the world of thought, it can be pretty rough. Looking at that 9 and the 10, we can really hurt ourselves or hurt others with our words and thoughts. And then let's also notice in the court cards, lots of the air symbols. There's wind and birds and clouds and all kinds. And you can see a lot of movement. There's butterflies as well, air symbols. And then moving into the sign of earth and resources and responsibility with the pentacles, we can see all of and lots of yellow here. We're getting down into the where the sun is down in our sky, and you can see lots of fertility symbols. There's agriculture and grapes and animals and birds and plants and all kinds of earthy symbols in those. So that's like our visual vocabulary. And we can do different types of readings. Here's an example of a 13 card reading, which is kind of called a Celtic cross or a field and road. We're going to do a 7 card reading today, which can be deceptively simple and sufficiently complex to serve our purposes today. If we look at this reading, I'll move us a little bit to make it a bit larger. We can see that there's an issue at hand at the top middle. Up in here, there's our issue, and you can focus us, Lala, or we can see what the cards want to say. You'll let us know. At the bottom, we're doing a little timeline, and this could be anchored like in the present. This could be what happened a little while ago, what's going on now, and then what's coming up soon. It could be predictive in that way, or we might be looking at something that has happened, and we're looking at kind of a vignette timeline of it, and then getting some advice on how to deal with it because it's still lingering. What's going to be best for us to be cautious about on the top left. So even though it might be my default mode, let's say to, I don't know, I want to fight back. Maybe that's that, it might be best to be cautious about things. That's just an example. That's not necessarily the card that's going to come up. On the other hand, to the top right is going to be some more supportive advice, something that's going to be more in line with the greater good and for your own personal development. And then towards the end, we'll pick a 7th card. It's represented larger here because it looks larger in our layout. It's not that this is more important than the others, and it will also give us an opportunity to get some perspective on the